There's something magnetic about a fall from grace. We can't help but watch when a hero falls apart, especially when it feels like they were always meant to. It's the tragic arc, the beautiful doom. We don't just watch these characters fall, we ache with them, scream at them, and weirdly, we love them even more for their ruin. Among the greatest of these haunted legends is Anakin Skywalker, the Golden Jedi Knight who became the mechanical nightmare of Darth Vader. His story isn't just a sci-fi tale of lightsabers and space politics, it's a dramatic tale of a man slowly dying by fear, and this right here is the key. It's his very humanity that makes him unforgivable. Every great tragic character has one fatal flaw. The Greeks call it hamartia, a missing mark in an otherwise perfect soul. Think of Oedipus and his stubborn pride, Hamlet and his paralysis, or Macbeth and his vaulting ambition. These characters don't fall because the world conspires against them, they fall because they are wired to implode. Anakin's flaw is in his fear of loss. He's terrified of losing the people he loves, and in the twisting irony that defies tragic arcs, it's that very fear that causes him to destroy everything he once held sacred. The Jedi warned him that fear leads to anger. Yoda, with all his cryptic grammar and ancient wisdom, says that fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger leads to hate leads to suffering. But Anakin, from the very beginning, was consumed in fear. He was born into slavery, raised in chains. He knew the taste of helplessness before he knew how to use a lightsaber. And when he was ripped away from his mother on Tatooine, that fear became a permanent scar. Even after she died in his arms, and he slaughters an entire village in blind fury, Anakin didn't learn from it. He just hides it. The Jedi, in their detached way, refuse to allow attachments. No love, no fear of losing love. It's a clean system in theory, but Anakin is not clean. He's messy and emotional, and most damningly human. He loves obsessively, and he refuses to believe that true peace means letting go. The moment Anakin dreams of Padme dying in childbirth, the wheel is set in motion. He has seen this pattern before. He dreamt of his mother's death, and then she died. Now, the woman he loves is next, and he's determined not to let history repeat itself. This isn't just fear, it's a trauma. It's a classic psychological response from someone who has never been given the tools to process grief or loss. Anakin doesn't have emotional regulation. The Jedi never taught it. They taught him how to fight with a blade, not how to fight the storm inside his chest. So when Palpatine spoke of a dark power that can save Padme from death, Anakin listens because he's scared. The tragedy is that he becomes what he fears. In trying to prevent Padme's death, he causes it. In trying to save love, he kills it. That's the gut punch. That's what makes us stare at the screen in horror, even though we know what's coming. Because deep down, we see a mirror. So why do we care so deeply about characters like Anakin? Why do we write essays, make fan art, dissect scenes frame by frame? Because his story is more than just spectacle. We all fear loss. We all fear failure. Anakin's downfall isn't rooted in alien logic. It's fully human. And when a character reflects our deepest emotions, especially the ones we are told to suppress, we connect, we hurt, and we love them, not in spite of their flaws, but because of them. However, Anakin's not alone. So many of our favorite characters are driven by the very things that undo them. Walter White's need to prove himself turns him from meek teacher to monster, and Jay Gatsby's obsessive love for the past destroys any chance of a future. We love these characters not because they make good choices, but because they make real painful choices. Even after Anakin's death, his legacy continues in us. You see, when we talk about heroes, we often celebrate their bravery, selflessness, or capacity to stand up to insurmountable odds. But the truly unforgettable ones are rarely just brave. They're damaged, haunted, and flawed in a way that makes them feel almost too human. Think of the way Katniss Everdeen's name comes into our minds long after the flames of Hunger Games have died down. She's a survivor with a slow, suffocating guilt that worms its way through her every decision, and every choice to fight or not to fight. And that's the tragic flaw that drives the story forward and makes her so endlessly fascinating to us. At first glance, Katniss is a classic reluctant hero who doesn't want the spotlight. She volunteers for her sister and survives the arena because she has to. But as the story unfolds, we begin to see something deeper, a sense of responsibility for everything and everyone around her. And that responsibility, when unmet, curdles into guilt. Not survivor's guilt, but a more personal inward moral guilt, a belief that she should have done more. The first crack in her armor comes after Rue's death. Rue becomes a surrogate for the sister Katniss left behind, so Rue's death is very intimate. When Katniss sings to her dying body and surrounds her with flowers, it's not a show for the cameras, it's an apology that she failed. Rue haunts Katniss for the rest of the series because Katniss believes she should have saved her. She carries that moment and the deaths only escalate. Later on, Katniss becomes the Mockingjay because she thinks she owes it to the dead. She becomes the face of the rebellion because she can't live with the idea that Rue, Thresh, Cinna, and countless others died in vain. Her decisions are reactive since she's trying to balance a cosmic scale of loss, one life for another. One symbolic gesture for 100 silent graves. This is where her flaw becomes clear. Katniss believes she has to carry every death, every betrayal, every broken promise, as if guilt were a kind of fuel, and for a time it works. Guilt drives her to act. Guilt makes her brave. Guilt gets results. but guilt, unchecked, is very damaging. Unlike traditional heroes who gradually grow into their role, Katniss becomes more broken the more heroic she appears. Her guilt isolates her. She mistrusts everyone because she doesn't think she deserves their loyalty. She pushes Peeta away because she can't imagine a future with joy or peace. She sabotages connections, flinches at affection, and recoils from anything that doesn't remind her of the people she failed. The most heartbreaking part is that she never really stops punishing herself. Even after the war ends, even after the capital falls, she's not free. Victory doesn't erase the guilt. In fact, it increases it. Her beloved sister, Prim, dies in a capital bombing Katniss can't prevent. The irony is cruel, and yet again, Katniss turns inward. Instead of blaming war or politics or the architects of violence, she blames herself because in her mind, if she had just made a different choice by trusting the right person, fired the right arrow, or refused the wrong alliance, Prim might still be alive. It's irrational, but that's what makes it so human. Every major relationship Katniss has is shaped by her guilt. With Gale, she grows distant because her role in Prim's death reflects a part of herself she can't forgive. The part that weaponized rebellion. With Peeta, she hesitates because he represents the version of herself that could have been happy, and happiness feels like betrayal. With her mother, there's always tension because Katniss feels she became the parent and resents it, even as she shoulders the burden without question. Guilt turns love into something fragile, and in Katniss's world, fragility is dangerous. In the epilogue of Mockingjay, we see Katniss with her children, living in a world that is technically free, but peace hasn't healed her. The war lives on in her head. She admits to playing a mental game, listing every act of good she can remember as a way to keep the ghosts at bay. Katniss doesn't end her story as a glorified hero. She ends it as a woman who has survived something deeply scarring and is simply trying to live, trying to forgive herself, trying to believe that maybe, just maybe, she's allowed to be okay. Sometimes surviving doesn't feel like winning, and that's what makes her unforgettable. While some characters win our love by being aspirational, others earn our respect through bravery or brilliance, and some force us to watch as they drown in their own reflection, dragging everything around them into the void. We scream at them to get better, to stop self-destructing, but they never really do because they don't believe they deserve to. Bojack Horseman, the washed-up 90s sitcom star, is the embodiment of that internal collapse. His tragic flaw is not fear of loss or guilt over the past, it's self-loathing, a chronic identity-destroying belief that he's fundamentally broken, that he's unworthy of love, incapable of change, and permanently damaged. And that's why we can't stop watching him. Bojack isn't a traditional hero. He's not saving lives or fighting wars. He's not leading a rebellion or wrestling with destiny. He's doing something arguably harder, trying to survive himself. On the surface, he's funny, rich, famous, and surrounded by people. He owns a hillside mansion, throws parties with A-listers, and has a theme song people still hum. But strip that away, and you're left with a man who can't stand being alone because the silence screams louder than any applause. Bojack isn't simply sad. His flaw is deep-rooted and self-fulfilling. He hates himself so completely that he becomes the very thing he believes he is. His self-loathing is active. He drinks too much, sleeps with the wrong people, sabotages friendships, burns bridges. And every time he does something horrible, he tells himself it was inevitable. He messes up not because he wants to, but because he believes it's all he's capable of. This is where Bojack's tragedy veers from traditional arcs. He isn't trying to be good and failing. He's trying to prove he's bad and succeeding. That belief that he's a terrible person gives him permission to act like one. He's stuck in a feedback loop where he hates himself, so he does something awful. That awful thing justifies the self-hate, which drives more awful behavior. We don't just watch him spiral, we watch him build the spiral himself. It's easy to mistake Bojack's behavior for arrogance or selfishness. He is, after all, constantly chasing validation, attention, and comfort. But the truth is darker, is that his desperate need to be seen and simultaneously his inability to accept love. Bojack doesn't love himself enough to believe anyone else could genuinely care for him. So when they do, he rejects it, undermines it, and destroys it, because deep down, he's terrified they will see the real Bojack and walk away. Better to ruin it first. This is why his relationship with Diane is so volatile. Why does he sleep with Sarah Lynn? Why he distances himself from Todd? He doesn't think he deserves them, and when they stay, it doesn't reassure him. It threatens him. To accept love would mean he might have to forgive himself, and that's a battle he refuses to fight. And here's the really uncomfortable part. We're part of the problem. As viewers, we watch Bojack implode and come back, over and over. Every time he sinks, we wonder, will this be the moment he finally changes? We cheer for growth, and we get angry when he fails, but we also keep tuning in because Bojack lets us explore our own self-hate safely. He says the things we think in our darkest moments, the parts of ourselves we hide, and when he spirals, it's oddly comforting. If he is still broken, maybe we're not so bad. Bojack becomes a mirror, a cracked, painfully accurate mirror. Most tragic characters reach a final breaking point, a moment where everything shatters and they either rise or fall, but Bojack's flaw makes even that elusive. His rock bottoms are numerous. Each time you think, this has to be it, but it never is, because Bojack's flaw isn't circumstantial, it's psychological. You can take the fame, the booze, the friends, and he will still be alone with himself. And that's where the real tragedy lies. No amount of consequences can fix the belief that you are irredeemable. So why do we love Bojack? Why do we keep coming back? It's not Schadenfreude. We're not just rubbernecking a car crash. We care about him because we know that under all that mess is someone who wants to be better. Someone who keeps looking for a way out, even if he keeps walking into the same wall. And that glimmer of potential is what keeps us hooked. We don't just love Bojack for his brokenness. We love him for his attempts, for the brief shining moments where he tries to be kind, to connect, to forgive himself. When he lets his guard down with Diane, when he apologizes to Herb, when he tries to protect Hollyhock. These moments don't last, but they matter because in those scenes, Bojack isn't a monster. Unlike classic redemption arcs, Bojack's path is agonizingly slow and unfinished. Even at the end, there's no grand relief or tidy bow. Just a quiet moment on a rooftop with Diane, wondering if he can live with himself as a person, trying not to mess up again. Maybe that's the most honest ending possible because real self-loathing doesn't disappear with one apology. It takes years, therapy, patience, humility. And even then, some days are just about not slipping backward. Bojack's self-loathing isn't resolved, it's just quieter, and maybe that's enough. His story reminds us that sometimes the most heroic thing you can do isn't save the world or lead the charge, it's not giving up on yourself, even when everything in you says you should. That's the essence of a great tragic character. They don't just entertain us, they reveal us. They show us how close we all are to the edge, how easy it is to fall, and how unimaginably hard it is to crawl back. Bojack may never get the perfect ending, but maybe that's the point. Some people don't need a perfect ending, they just need another chance.